Okay, so we're going to begin. There's still people signing in, but it's a little bit of a slow roll up to the program. Um, this is the backyard poultry session of our 2025 Rooted and Resilient Homesteading series for beginners. I'm Garrett Livermore. I'm the presenter. I'm also a longtime backyard poultry keeper, chicken keeper myself. So this is something that I enjoy and I feel pretty strongly about. It's a great thing to do. I'm also a beekeeper, and I kind of play one off against the other. Um, we're a relatively smaller group this evening, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat and we'll address them either during the program or right after. So I start with a quote. This quote's another Joel Salatin quote. If every kitchen in America had enough chickens attached to it to eat all of the scraps coming out of that kitchen, no egg industry or commerce would be necessary in the whole country. And indeed, a generation or two ago, every family had some egg-laying chickens in the backyard. It was a standard part of even people in town, but certainly people in countrysides and rural farms all kept chickens for eggs and other purposes. Um, Poultry is one of the best things you can do for long-term sustainability in terms of your household. They are the kind of entrance to keeping animals, so they're a good way to learn that discipline. And of course, they provide fresh eggs to eat and share. With the price of eggs, that's an economic thing as well. But for me, most importantly, it's the health and eating qualities of fresh eggs. When you buy eggs in the store, mostly they've been sitting in warehouses for weeks or sometimes months. And they are also produced by massive batteries of egg-laying chickens using minimal feed and a lot of stress on the animals. It gives me great satisfaction to eat products that come from my chickens that live a very healthy, nice life, and they benefit from living here, and we benefit from the food that they provide. Um, Also, in terms of gardening, if you're a home gardener, chickens are a great way of boosting the fertility of your soil. Chicken manure is an excellent fertilizer. I'll talk about that next week when we talk about sustainability and regenerative gardening. But they're also an incredible processor of compost. You know, when you have a compost pile and you wait weeks or months for it to rot down to become compost, you let chickens loose on a compost pile, and they process it very quickly and turn it around. They're also a minor insect control. They're not going to keep all the ticks away, but they do eat things. If you have kids, they are a great introduction to animal care and teaching the basics of agriculture and where food comes from. And if you are interested in it, they are also a great source of protein in terms of meat, dual source. Um, we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So tonight we're going to cover what the necessary equipment is, nutrition for your chickens, health and security for your birds, where to purchase and raise chicks, and how to raise them, few different breeds. There's a lot of different breeds, and then a little bit about egg management. And again, if you have any questions, comments, drop them in the chat. Somebody already dropped in a chicken emoji. So chicken coops. Chicken coops are by far your biggest investment. You can buy them pre-made like this. This is an Amish design. You see them on the roadside everywhere. I actually have one that's very similar to this. Um, you can make your own. There are plans available. And when we distribute the PowerPoint of this and the link to the video, there will be a set of plans. If you are handy and good with a saw and hammer, you can build your own. It won't exactly look like this, but it will be a very effective coop. Coops are important because they are the shelter against the weather. We live in a harsh climate, and you need to provide a weather-tight shelter for your birds. Just as important as being weather tight, it needs to be predator tight so that you keep out raccoons, weasels, and other critters that will get in and do your birds harm. You want to make sure that it has a layout that facilitates managing your flock. We'll talk about that more in a moment. And you want to make it a comfortable home for your chickens. Because when they feel good, they produce more and they're easier to work with. An integral part of a chicken coop and the layout is having an outdoor run. An exterior run is really important. Even if you plan to let your chickens free range, you're going to need to confine them outside at some point. Um, and that's, because of predator issues or for to keep your garden safe against the chickens themselves. And just so if you go away to work, you don't have to worry about them. They're in some place that they're comfortable and is secure. Um, so we have to think about the logistics of your chicken coop layout. You want it near your barn or garage or wherever it is you're going to be storing feed and hay and things like that. Um, and also in the winter, you're gonna have to shovel a path to it because you're still gonna have to mind your chickens. So what's the easiest place for that, most effective place for that to be? Will it be also be in a place that's sheltered from winds in the winter time? Your interior is as important as your exterior. You're going to need nesting boxes for the laying eggs. Chickens and instinctively like to go to a tight interior space to lay their eggs, and those nesting boxes over there is the kind of thing they want. Um, the Amish design there, that part that protrudes at the bottom, those are nesting boxes there. So that's actually an easy, convenient thing because that top lifts up and you can gather the eggs without having to go into the coop and disturbing the birds. You're going to want litter to absorb droppings and provide warmth. Chickens, if they don't really need exterior sources of heat, and we'll talk about that more in a moment, but the bedding provides a cushion and it puts off enough heat as the chicken droppings are on it and things that it will keep it up and comfortable for them. This particular interior layout has that fencing on the inside. That would be a good thing to have when you're introducing either new birds or chicks to the flock. You want them so that the birds can see one another but not get at one another and get used to one another so that they don't peck the newcomers and it rather go smoothly. So if you put them behind a fence like that for several days, week max, they will get used to one another and you can just open a fence up and they'll be good to go. The space allowance for a bird is a minimum of 3 by 3 feet for each bird, so you're going to keep that in mind. But a chicken coop like the ones we've just been looking at, they have a capacity with, I calculated it's like 18 or 20 birds could fit in there and can do that, fit that same parameter. Roosts are important. The chickens naturally like to roost. In the evening, they go home, they go into the coop. They will go in there naturally. You don't need to chase them in. That when it gets dark, they have very poor night vision. So they want to go where they know it's home and safe, and they want to they want to be up. So a roost is an important part of security for them. Um, what you want it to be is this is actually a good layout here, and you can construct one very simply with scrap materials or even natural materials like branches and things like that. It should be natural materials, particularly no metal or plastic should be used on the part that touches the chicken's feet. Because what happens if it's cold, if it's metal and it's cold, it conducts heat away from the chicken's feet and they'll get frostbite. So natural materials. It should be rather largish in diameter, like the size. You see, this is an old ladder that was recycled. That's kind of a minimum of what you'd want. Some say that even a flat 2 by 4 or other building stock is better, but you want it so that they can naturally roost there and be comfortable. The roost itself needs to be staggered, like you see this, because you see they go right on top of one another, and if you have it straight vertical, they'll be pooping on one another all night. Stagger it so they can each get their own individual space and there's a different vertical plane. Because they're going to be there all night and they will be doing their business, a way to make cleanup easier is to put a scrap piece of plywood or even like heavy plastic or something right underneath that roost. And then the chickens will poop there, and you can just kind of take that out and put it in your compost so it can break down, and it's not going to fill the coop up with ammonia and the other byproducts of that degrading. Outdoor roosts are also an important thing for chicken runs. It's not vital, but it's a nice thing that chickens like. Chickens are curious creatures and they like to see what's going on, so they go and roost up and they will watch what goes on in a yard. Um, it also keeps them above the runs, which around this time of year in the spring get muddy, and keeps them up and a little bit cleaner. So bedding. Bedding's a very important thing. You don't want a bare floor, both for sanitary purposes and for the comfort of the chickens. They like to have that loose bedding so that they can scratch around in it. They will make, they will build up the material in their nesting boxes. They'll move it around. Um, the materials that you want to use for that, probably the best and most readily available and the cheapest is just baled pine shavings, such as you can get at a Tractor Supply store or at a home outlet or a hardware store. The flake cut, I think it's called, the bigger cuts, the coarser cut. You don't want sawdust or fine cut because it clumps up with the chicken manure and holds moisture, and that becomes a problem. Straw is also okay, but not hay. And the difference between straw and hay is straw is the shaft of a grain like wheat or oats. Hay is an entire grass length, so it has the seeds and things. And hay often has moisture in it. It often has mold, particularly if it's gotten wet. Um, and these are unhealthy for the chickens. Straw is drier, it doesn't mold as easily, and is a better bedding material for more comfort and better health for your birds. So no, some more words about the chicken runs themselves. This needs to be tight against predators. I'm going to talk a minute about the kind of predators we can expect in this region, but chickens are constantly subject to predation from all kinds of creatures. So you want a nice strong fence up. You want hardware cloth or poultry netting. Chicken wire is not strong enough and it rots in contact with the ground. If you have a place where there's definitely raccoons and skunks and other critters that are going to want to get in, you want to bury the wire down a little bit and put a board down low, like you see in this run right here. Um, and this way, when you go to work, if you want to let your chickens out, they can be safe. Something to also consider is running, and this can be chicken wire, or more simply, simple materials, but across the top of it. Because another thing we'll talk about are hawks. Hawks will hunt chickens and they will fly into a run. Another alternative to that is you can string a fishing line with mylar strips, shiny mylar strips, over the run in an interweaving pattern. It doesn't have to totally close in like a net, but enough so that the bird will be reluctant to fly in there. That's also effective. Um, Another reason for having an outdoor run is uh, chickens, although we love them, are very damaging to your landscape. Chickens love to wander your yard. If you have a vegetable garden and you have fresh seedlings out, they will dig them up and they will eat them. They will also follow you behind as you're working in your garden and undo all the work that you've done. If you have a nice set of mulch in your landscape, they will redistribute your mulch all over your driveway, your walkways. Um, so particularly in the spring of the year, as your landscape is getting established, you definitely want to keep them confined for your own sanity. They also like to run up, as my wife says, our front porch is a chicken bathroom. Uh, whenever whenever there's rain or other weather, the chickens run up on the porch. They'll spend all day on the porch, and then the patio furniture and everything else is just filled with chicken poop. So as well as like keep them confined. That way, when you want them to free range, you can be outside. You can shoo them away from wherever they're not supposed to be. Um, so some of the characteristics you want, you just want to make sure it's well drained. You might even build it up a little bit in the interior of the run with gravel or coarse stone, so that their feet aren't sitting in mud. You want to make it so it's accessible from the coop itself. So the door, there's usually a small chicken door in a coop. So that can be a direct entrance and exit for them. And then also a human gate. So you can access the run directly. And also, if you want to let them out, if you're around, you want to let them free range a little bit on your property. That way they have a way to go out without going through your coop.
Garrett, we have a question in the
Ye-
chat.
Yes.
Would the Mylar also bother the chickens?
No, I mean, they might notice it at first, but it's going to be up. So you would put it so like in this scenario where you're looking at here, you would put some long, thin poles that are maybe 3 or 4 feet above the top rail of that fence, and then run the fishing line between those. You might have, one every other one of those verticals. And they'll be up there. The chickens that will not bother the chickens, the Mylar. So there's some important things to think about in terms of your chicken coop. This very dramatic photo on the left is something that I caution everyone about. Um, we have a human standard of comfort and we worry about, our animals being comfortable. So oftentimes people put heat lamps in, in their coops to keep their birds warm. And that's bad for several reasons. The primary reason is because chicken coops tend to be dusty and dirty, and also chickens, if they get, they'll pull on wires, they'll do different things. And if a heat lamp falls, you're going to have the result that you see on the left, the fire. It's going to kill all your birds, it's going to destroy your coop. And if the coop is close enough to your house or barn, it may also take those out as well. So no heat lamps. There's going to be heat lamps. We're going to talk about them with chicks, but very limited use. No external heating in a coop except for water, which is a contained heating unit, which is very low wattage. Um, because we don't want that fire risk. And this happens regularly of the coop fire, and it's virtually always a heat lamp in there. And the other thing to think about, in terms of comfort, you're putting a human idea on a bird that has been acclimated to living out the out of doors for thousands of years. So long as they are in a space that's confined from the weather, they're not exposed to wind, they're actually quite comfortable. This past winter was kind of brutal for us humans, but my chickens got through it in their coop without any auxiliary heat, and they were happy. And you go in there, and they fluffed up. They're on their roosts, and they sometimes get close to one another, share body heat. They're fine. We had no frostbite, no chicken injuries. Um, but no heat lamps. That's my word of the day. The other one is this: the issue is sometimes people repurpose sheds or other buildings, and that's fine, except for you need to consider light and ventilation. Um, there is some ventilation in that shed. You can see on the up above, there are some vent ports so it's for air exchange, but it's really not sufficient. And you want to have windows because you want to, in the summertime, you want to open up those windows with a screen so there can be a free flow of air. Because a real problem with chicken health is poultry health, I guess, is airborne. The ammonia coming from excrement uh, harms their lungs, and then that's where they get respiratory diseases. And a chicken with a respiratory disease, I'll talk a little bit about avian influenza, looks just like a human with the flu. They get cough, they sneeze, their eyes are very heavy, they're logy, they look like they're suffering and they need NyQuil. Don't give it to them, but that's what it looks like. So this coop would be fine if they cut those windows that cut out those into bigger windows and allow for more ventilation. So those are my two must nots for your coops. Seasonally, you can do other things for and make better use of your chickens in terms of managing your landscape. The structure on the left is called a chicken tractor. This is a very fancy one. And essentially, you can't really see them, but they're in the back. The last horizontal member has a wheel at either end and an axle. So you can pick up that from the front end and move it. So you move your chickens through the landscape and they will scratch and peck and they will pick up bugs and eat plants and fertilize your ground. You can run them over parts of your garden that you aren't using. The chicken tractor is a very good thing to have, and you don't they, as again they don't have to be as elaborate as that one. You can make a very simple device, or what you see on the right is poultry netting, and that's electrified. There's a fence charger that goes in there. The chickens won't hurt themselves on it. They will perhaps touch it once. I've never actually seen a chicken touch it, but they seem to know to stay away from it. It also keeps predators out, and you can move them around. It's a bigger area. Um, and they will get in there. And then there's the back thing I think is also considered chicken tractor, but you can then move them into the coop at night if you wish. Um, a thing about handling chickens is, again, they have very poor night vision. So if you need to move them, if you need to pick them up, the best thing to do, because you don't, they're fast, they're hard to, they can catch them, but you spend a lot of time running around after them. Just wait until after dark. They'll go into their coop, they'll roost, and you can go and pick them up. So if you wanted to move them out of this chicken tractor back into the coop, I would wait until dark, open it up, and just very carefully and gently lift them up and move them where you need to move them. But poultry netting like that is very good to have. It's also good to have if you have a predator problem. Our biggest problem here has been foxes and domestic dogs, but mostly foxes. And foxes will find a way into a chicken run. They're very good at climbing fences, digging under fences, and they will destroy your flock in short order. But if they come around, they get a bird or two, put up poultry netting with the charger, and that will keep them away. It's the most effective way of dealing, particularly with foxes. So you need a way to supply water, and it needs to be, because we're in a cold climate, a way of keep it from freezing. And the water you see at the left is a common one. I've had this one, and I've had another one that's bigger with a bit better capacity. Um, but it has a couple of important features. Mostly in the winter it has a small electrical heater in it. You can see the cord coming off the bottom there. Um, that keeps it liquid. It doesn't heat it to, it's not hot water, but it keeps it liquid, just enough so it's always liquid. The chickens learn how to poke at that red star cross-like plastic piece. That's the valve, and they can get water from there. It's also covered because chickens love to make a mess, and a lot of the mess involves their own excrement. So having a cover will keep your water sanitary for longer. Um, Correspondingly, in the summer, you shouldn't put the water in the sun. They like cooler water. If the water gets too hot, they won't drink it. And if it's hot, it stimulates biological activity. So they potentially you'll get it'll create germ growth. So covered, heated in the winter, in the shade in the winter, in the summer. Um, you want to clean it once a month at least with a bleach solution to sterilize it. Um, that's good health practices. You can also put a tray under it or a pan of some sort, because invariably they leak a little bit. And if they leak a little into the bedding becomes kind of sodden. Um, but it's a very simple device. Water is very, very important to chickens. In the winter time, they use water to regulate their heat, their blood. So if they don't get enough water, that kind of increases their susceptibility to the cold. So feeders, you want to have a feeder of a size. Actually, this looks like exactly like the feeder that I have. Uh, so it has a multiple day supply for your entire flock. So this takes about, I would say about 5 pounds of feed or more. And it lasts, our flock is somewhat diminished because we had a predator problem. So now we just have 5. Um, but that will last my chickens like almost a week, that size feeder. You want to hang it about head high. And again, this is for sanitary reasons. Uh, if you have it on the ground, you see a lot of pictures with feeders on the ground. If the feeder is on the ground, the chickens they're like people. They like to dig through and find the best bits. So they will dig in and they'll like scatter stuff around as they're looking for the best kernels of food. And all that food that gets scattered into the bedding becomes wasted. And as we'll talk about in a minute, chicken feed is not chicken feed. It's not cheap. Also, it having a lot of food on the ground possibly attracts rodents or other critters. So hanging about head high. Sometimes flocks have personalities that you will see that they kind of develop a group personality. Sometimes they all get along together. Sometimes there's a very dominant single or pair of hens who restrict others from feed and can become very bossy. If that starts to happen, it's problematic. You get two feeders so that that divides their attention. So you do want to have some health materials right there so that you're ready for it. A lot of which is preventative, so some vitamin, mineral substances that you can put in the food or in the water. Uh, Blue coat is very important. Blue coat, I usually don't give brand recommendations. I think there may be other types of this material that are different brands. But blue coat is a wound dressing. And chickens are attracted to the sight of blood. So if you have a chicken that has a wound, either from another chicken or from just a misadventure somewhere, chickens will peck at it and they will continue pecking at it and they will hurt and perhaps even kill another bird. Blue coat is, I buy it in an aerosol form. That's as a liquid form. The aerosol form, you spray it on. It's a interesting kind of lavender color. And the lavender color they don't really see. It's outside their visual range. So it covers up the wound. They can't see it. And also it's an antiseptic, so it helps treat the wound. Um, Ground oyster shells is important for uh, calcium for their eggshells, and also for grit to go into their gizzard, because their gizzard is their chewing mechanism, and it's an organ along their digestive train above their stomach that grinds food, and they need hard. Usually, they pick up pebbles or stones, small stones along the way. But if they're not free ranging, they might not have access to that. So you'd want to put some ground oyster shells in their feed. So let's talk a little bit about feeding your chickens. So as chickens develop through their lifespan, their feed needs change. Also, depending on what you're raising the chickens for, their needs are different. Um, Starter feeds from the time you get chicks until they're about 6 weeks old. In other words, until the time they start to uh, put out adult feathers, and they look less like these little fuzz balls rather than adolescent chickens. Um, they need a very high protein to feed their rapid growth. Um, they need calcium to a lesser degree than adult birds, and phosphorus, which is also important for muscle and skeletal development. As well as, just like every other leading creature, they need vitamins and minerals, which are going to help them grow. The form you want to get it in, chicken feed comes generally in two different forms. One are pellets, little pellets, kind of look like wood pellets if you have a wood pellet stove, a little bit smaller size, or crumbles. And crumbles are just, as it says, it's crumbled up. When they're small, they need crumbles. When they get older and adults, pellets are easier and less messy than crumbles, but if you have a preference, it can be either or. Nutritionally, they are the same. And the chickens will eat whichever one you put out before them. When they get to be pullets, and the birds on your right are pullets, a pullet is simply an immature hen. It's between a chick and an adult hen, and they kind of look gangly and adolescent as a lot of living forms go through. Their protein needs are 16 to 18%, less calcium. Um, And really the focus for the feed is in supporting continued development. Um, and then finally, laying hens. You will find when you go to buy feed, if you're buying pre-made feed, this is formulated to meet the needs of a hen to produce the best food, produce the best eggs possible. They want production, shell quality, and also an important thing is the color of the yolk. Um, One of the reasons that homegrown chickens, the yolks are kind of this deep yellow, orangey color, is the feed supports that. The commercial feed that's fed to your production chickens doesn't necessarily have those same ingredients. Um, so 16 to 18% protein, very high calcium to get a very strong shell. Um, and you can supplement that with oyster shell if you're having problems with weak shells. Phosphorus, uh, energy levels are moderate compared to when they're very young. You can get obese chickens, you can have overweight chickens, and that negatively impacts their health just as it does for everyone else. Um, and then you can either through the feed you buy have this, or you can buy vitamin supplements for chickens. And these, they're formulated different means, and you can find a brand that you trust. Um, they're all pretty good. I don't tend to use them. I haven't found them to be that necessary, but we get attached to our chickens almost like other pets, and you want them to have the best health possible. You can buy some supplemental feed for them. I'm not going to talk a lot about meat birds. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. But meat birds uh, develop in a very different fashion than egg layers. Meat birds are genetically programmed to grow very fast and very quickly, efficiently turn feed into muscle, therefore meat. So it's a very high protein. They have a very short lifespan, and I'll talk a little bit more when we talk about Cornish cross, which is the variety of chickens, the breed of chickens. You're talking about a chicken's entire lifespan is, you know, 8 to 10 weeks, and they're ready to go. And if you let them go longer, they will have health problems and eventually pass away because of that. So you would want to use a protein feed with a protein level of about 18 to 20%. You don't really need, hate to say it, but the vitamins and other supplements are not necessarily here because it's not a long-term proposition. I mean, just in comparison, these birds, meat birds, again, 10 weeks is an old meat bird. Beyond that, they have health problems. Hens, laying hens, normally an average lifespan, not subject to predation, 4 to 5 years, and occasionally much longer. We had our what we call the queen of the coop in our flock. She was an Araucana who survived several attacks, not directly, but on the flock by foxes. She was a survivor, and she lasted 8 years. And I've heard that she laid an egg a month before she died. So they'll last. Your average chicken lasts about in production 4 years or so. And then if you keep them like we don't cull the flock. We let them live out their lives. They will occasionally lay eggs beyond that, but only occasionally. So a question we get asked is, can I make uh, our own food? Can we save money by doing that? And commercial layer feed, such as you get at big box stores or feed stores, varies between $16 to $22 in their standard 50-pound bag. And that's gone up like everything else in the last few years. It was 12 to 16, and now it's 16 to 22. And at each level that you get, like the $16 and the $22 bags, they're quite different. They each have basic nutrition, but the $22 bag is a much higher quality product. So that's a decision you're going to make, whether you're going to do that. We buy middle of the road feed and then supplement the chicken feed with other things, including kitchen scraps. Chickens are good at processing chicken scraps, like leftover pasta, rice. They love rice. Um, but people are interested in growing their own, making their own feed. I'm not going to talk about growing your own feed because that's another thing. But there is a recipe which I'll show in a moment, and it costs. I calculated it out. I did the math. It's about $18 for 50 pounds. So not a great cost savings. You'll know what it is, but you also have to put the labor in, and you also have to find the stuff. So the recipe looks like this. It's about half cracked corn, and cracked corn is easy to find. It's cheap. Uh, it's 50 pounds is like 12 or $15, whatever it was calculated. Wheat or barley, and for animal feed is harder to find. You can find all this stuff on the internet, but then you have to pay for shipping. Uh, so you have to add that, and I did not calculate shipping. But you can scrounge around and find that. Soybean meal you can find at an animal feed store. Oats are used to feed horses. You can use the same for that. Alfalfa meal you can find. That's probably something you'd probably have to buy online or a specialized feed store. Same with fish meal or bone meal. Um, and then whether you want to add in the vitamins or mineral premix, you have to physically gather this all together, put it into a large. I've done this before, into a large heavy duty plastic garbage can, clean, of course, fresh one, and then dump it all in and mix it up with a giant, I think I used a shovel. But it's always a fair amount of work. You have to keep it secure against mice and rodents. And I see this picture that I found actually has insects, mealworms or something. Chickens love mealworms. They love any kind of insect. Um, so that adds variety that they would like. I try to achieve the same thing in a little bit. It's a labor saver for me. When you go to the feed store, you can buy the chicken, crumbles or pellets. You can also buy something called scratch feed. Scratch feed is raw kernels of all of this. It looks almost exactly like what you see there. And I use that as a supplement. And it's a great way of attracting them. You can call them chick, 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 and rattle the can with the scratch feed in it. Throw some of that on the ground. They instinctively like to pull things off the ground, so it kind of satisfies that desire in them and provides many of the same additional nutrients that a homemade feed would be. It's an interest of mine to figure out how to grow feed, but I haven't gotten there yet. Maybe next year. So this I pulled off of a Purdue ag school study, this illustration. So these are two birds, came from the same clutch of eggs from the same mother, and one was raised just on cracked corn, which has 7% protein, and the other was raised on commercial protein poultry starter, which has very high protein. You can see the difference in size and weight. Um, Also, the comb is much higher developed in the bird on the right. Um, the bird on the left actually looks a lot like chickens you'll see in the Caribbean and other non-industrialized country that kind of run free. So it looks like a wild chicken, which is fine. I don't think that chicken is particularly sick, but it's not going to provide the same amount of eggs and or meat that the chicken on the right will. So an investment in feed is an investment ultimately in the food that goes on your table from the chickens. Let's talk a little bit of health and safety. You've probably heard about avian flu. Avian flu is a major concern, particularly in backyard flocks. In the follow-up email, you'll get a flyer, a fact sheet about it, so you can keep an eye out for it. But essentially, avian flu, as I mentioned, it looks exactly like in the chicken form as it does in human form, only it's very deadly for them. They will get a respiratory illness. They will start to sneeze and cough. Their eyes will become rheumy and kind of close at half mast. They'll become very logy, and they will pass away. It has a very high fatality rate. It will go through a flock very quickly. If it gets into a commercial crop, it will commercial flock, it will kill all of them. Um, so the way to prevent this is practice good biosecurity. And good biosecurity is just good chicken keeping. So you want to maintain a clean coop and run. So just go through, you don't have to replace the bedding all the time, but just shovel up all of the manure and other droppings um, and get that on your compost. Change and clean your water, feed it, and then sterilize the feed and watering equipment. A very important one is it's not all the time, but occasionally birds, wild birds, waterfowl sometimes are attracted to the chicken feed, and they will start to hang out with your chickens. And while it's charming to begin with, it's also a great way to spread uh, chicken-borne the avian ailments, including this avian flu. So discourage that, keep them in the run, chase away ducks or crows or other ones to make sure there's no scattered feed outside, keep that in the coop itself, and that will help keep those chickens healthy. If you get a sick chicken, the first thing you want to do is isolate the individuals. What we do is we have several dog kennels, and we put them in the basement in a warm spot, break out the heat lamp so that keeps them warm, and fresh bedding, and just isolate them, keep them well fed and watered. There are veterinary medications available that you can get at feed stores. Um, and just keep an eye on them. And if they're not likely to recover, the best thing to do is cull them, and cull them is kind of doing them in. And I won't go into the particulars of that. If you need to know, you can look at there's several YouTube videos that are available on how to cull a chicken. It's not a pleasant process. We don't like to do it, but and sometimes it's for the best. So another thing you'll find are injured chickens. Chickens sometimes go after themselves if they're in a confined space. Generally, backyard flocks tend to get along pretty well because most people don't really crowd them in that much, and they get a chance to run around. But occasionally, there's a weak chicken hen in the flock, or there's a mean bully chicken, whatever the case is, they will go after them. Or sometimes a chicken just gets injured from some sort of misadventure. So again, treat with Blue Coat or another masking antiseptic product. Um, if the chickens are still going after it, take that chicken out and isolate it till it's healed. The thing that's been interesting to me is chickens are really, they don't weigh very much. They're really not a very substantial creature in that way, but they tend to recover. If you can get them out and get them to a place where they can heal undisturbed, they will most likely come back from that. But let them come back, and then reintroduce them slowly so that they don't become another victim. Meaning you would either put them into the run with a fence, or maybe within the dog kennel, uh, or if you need to get them in, like sneak them in at night, because again, the chickens don't see at night. Bring it in at night, put it in there, and the chickens wake up in the morning, and that one's there, and that works very well also. So you will find that you will lose chickens to predators. And this happens, and it's impossible to eliminate completely unless you keep your chickens in the run and in the coop all the time. But we like to see our chickens run free range. They like to do it, um, and so long as we're out and about, it generally keeps predators away. The hit parade of animals that are going to do your chickens harm. It's kind of in this order: dogs. Some dogs are naturally attracted to kill chickens. Um, we had a neighbor once who had 4 or 5 dogs that ran free and ran in a pack. And they came into our yard very early on, and they systematically went through and killed, it was almost 10 chickens, 9, 10 chickens. And they will just, a dog, and you need to know when you see an animal, a bird that's dead, have an understanding of how it died so that you can take action. So dogs will kill a chicken and then they lose interest in it. They drop the dead carcass right where it is. So if you come home and you have a bunch of dead chickens and they're all scattered around, they have no other wounds on them, most likely it's a dog. Um, you need to talk to your neighbors if you know who their neighbors are. Usually we know who the neighbors are with problematic dogs. Or if it's your own dog, you'll need to figure that out. We've not had a dog ourselves who attacked chickens. My brother brought a dog who did in some of our chickens. But I don't know what to do about that. And then sometimes you have a feral dog that's running loose. So you just need to keep your chickens secure. Foxes have been a major because foxes, they're sly like a fox. They will systematically come once they realize there's a food source there, and they will clean out a coop. And they will grab, and what you see is often you'll just see batches of feathers around your lawn, or even if they've gone in the coop, but no carcass, because a fox will grab a chicken, kill it, and then bring it off site and cache it somewhere, and then come back and kill more and cache them. So that it has a food source over a longer period of time. Foxes, you got to keep your chickens secure. A good secure run will help with that. Keep an eye out. If you see a fox and you scare it off, it knows chickens are there. It's going to be coming back. Um, and electric poultry netting will also keep them away. Um, so that's it with foxes. Hawks. Lost a chicken to a hawk last week. There's a little bit of mystery because it had been a long time that I've had a hawk death. Individual birds, one at a time, usually partially consumed because the hawk can't eat it all. Um, and what tends to happen is because a hawk is not much bigger than a chicken, they will track it down and it's like CSI. You have to track the evidence, the chain of evidence. And you'll see, as we saw last week, that there were multiple spots with feathers and bloody spots. And then finally, in our open woodshed, there was the body of part of the chicken that the hawk had come back to. And then the next morning, when I was cleaning that up and trying to figure out what happened, I heard the caw, caw, caw of a hawk, looked up in the tree, and it was looking down at me. So there it was, clearly coming back for more. Weasels, raccoons, sometimes skunks. These are nocturnal predators. They go into your coop generally at night. So if your coop is not secure, they will go in, and they are like a mass murderer. They do tremendous damage. They only eat parts of the chicken, and you will come into a really bloody mess with multiple bodies. It's a disturbing thing to see what happens. So that's a reason to have a nice, secure coop. They can't burrow through wood. They tend to, be in coops that sometimes people repartition a barn or another outbuilding, and there's little cracks of 1 inch or so, and they can work their way through any of that. Snakes, similarly, they'll come after. They tend to go after eggs, but snakes will occasionally be a problem. Not as much of a problem as the others. Oops, so I went through that. It's a great illustration. Roosters. We're going to talk a little bit more about roosters. Roosters presumably are there to protect the flock, but as a fellow who raised a lot of chickens told me, they are there to protect the flock, but really they're the first ones to die. They throw themselves at the predator, and that's they're not that much more effective. So let's talk about where to get chickens. So the first thing you do is you can raise your own. You can collect fertile eggs either locally from a chicken breeder, or sometimes, a family member, a friend is raising chickens and has a complete flock with um, a rooster, or you can purchase them online, and then you can buy an incubator, which is really the only way to successfully do this. Incubators vary in cost from like 75 to $200 for a home model. The more advanced ones rotate the eggs because the eggs need to be rotated. And what they do is they simply hold the temperature at 99.5 degrees for the 21 days it takes to incubate a chicken egg. So you can do that. That's a good way of doing it relatively cheaply. You're going to end up with a mixed flock of roosters and hens. but that might not be a problem for you. Most people purchase chicks, and purchasing chicks is really the most convenient, controllable way because you can get them from hatcheries, farm stores. There are various online sources that are available, and there'll be a list of those. Farm stores in this region include Tractor Supply, Runnings in Rome, Kelly's True Value, and in Cobleskill. Uh, so that gives you the choice. So you can select the breed of chicken you want. When you buy it, you have to buy a minimum of order of six. That's state law. And that was passed years ago when people were buying chicks for Easter and they'd buy one or two chicks and then the chickens would, it was a bad end for the chickens and for the kids. It was a poor lesson. So six is, you have to be serious about starting a flock. And they will sell them either as female, they're sexed and determined to be female, and they have their high degree of accuracy in that, straight run or male. And the straight run is mixed. Presumably it's 50-50, but anyone I've ever known who's bought straight run chickens, it's always at least 60-40 or 70-30 predominant to males. Because males, we're going to talk about roosters in a moment, but it's problematic to have more than one or two roosters in a flock. So always choose female. It's a slight extra fee, but you want to pay that. I should ask around locally there who has the best quality chicks. If you're interested in exotic chickens, and there are a lot of exotic chickens either in feather patterns or bantams or things like that, they're probably best sourced from online companies who will mail you, believe it or not, a set of chicks in the mail. Uh, so once you get your chicks, or by the hatching them or by buying them, you need to put them in what we call a brooder, and a brooder is simply can be just a cardboard box. We drag out the dog kennel and put cardboard box in there, and that's worked well for us. Provide pine shavings, no cedar. Cedar's too strong a scent for them. This is the one time where you can use a heat lamp, or a brooder plate is simply a warmer that will keep them warm. And you want to keep them about 95 degrees, and then ratchet that down each week. Um, and then you can see if they're comfortable or not. If they are all huddled up, that means they're too cold. If they're spread out and they actually kind of like make a panting face, they're too warm. But 95 degrees for chicken starting out is a nice temperature. They're nice and warm. That'll keep them happy. There's chick starter feed, fresh clean water every day, because just like the other chickens, they will mess up their water. There are little chick-sized feeders that you can use. Um, don't put big dishes of water that they can drown themselves in, because chickens can find a way to kill themselves with remarkable speed. Uh, Once they get to be 6 to 8 weeks, they'll start to be fully feathered, and you can start to handle cooler temperatures depending upon what it is. If it was cold out like today, I wouldn't be putting them out. But if it's May or June and it's 70 or 80 degrees, you can start putting them out and gradually introduce them to the coop during that mild weather. Sometimes you can buy pullets. Pullet is an immature chicken. Those are pullets on your left. Um, or adult birds. You often see them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. This can be a good way to get a young bird. However, there's a couple of things that happen. Unscrupulous persons will sell an adult bird that's a post-production bird. It's been used for laying eggs all of its life, and it will be kind of worn out and in poor health. So you don't want that. You don't want roosters. And you don't want them that are kept in poor condition. But I've had a number of good purchases. So people sometimes buy like 50 or 100 chicks, raise them up, and then sell them as pullets in August or September when they are a few weeks away from laying. And that way it saves you the expense and time of raising the chicks, and they can go directly into your laying flock. You pay more, so that the last time I paid was what, $20. It seems to be the similar today. Um, and that can get you ahead of the game. But again, be wary, any private sale of anything, you want the buyer to beware. I just want to say one thing, which is this year it's a very high demand year for chicks. So you want to find your source. If you're buying from a store, ask them when their chicks are coming in, because they'll get several shipments over the course of between now and late May, early June. And you want to go in the day that they get them in, because right now I understand there's even people lining up to buy chicks. So plan ahead. Roosters. Roosters are interesting creatures. They're beautiful, like this bird here, and an English game hen, gamecock. Um, and I understand that people have roosters that are calm and easy and gentle. I've never experienced that. We had a beautiful barred rock rooster dropped off at the end of our driveway a few years back. And he came down the driveway, and for the first week, he was just a pleasant member of the flock. And then he felt like he was at home, and he attacked the dogs. He attacked me. Um, he chased the cats up a tree. He was generally a pill, and I finally had to do him in. I actually had him processed when he came at me and almost took an eye out. So it's unlikely that they will seriously hurt you, but they are disturbing to deal with. They're a pain. They hurt other birds. Um, so you want to be careful about roosters in your flock. If you have a great one, more better, that's great. But I've honestly never experienced that. And I have tried. You'll see in the various Reddit forums and Facebook things, how do I calm an aggressive rooster? I tried all those tricks. And the one that seemed to work the best was I would go into the coop at night, I would grab him off the roost, and I would walk up and down the driveway holding a lot of pressure on him. Not enough to hurt him, but to know that there's a creature that's bigger than him, and talk to him. And he would leave me alone for days after that, but he still came after the dogs and my wife and other people. So that was not a good situation. So what breed are you going to get? There are many different breeds, and you can buy them for different purposes. Um, these chicks are what are called that hen there, and those chicks are what are called a red. It's a brand name, Red Comet or Red Star. There's some kinds called sex link, and what that means is simply uh, that they were bred so that as a young chick, you can identify the dark ones are the hens and the light ones are the roosters. So you can sort them very quickly and easily. And they're also bred for maximum egg production. So you'll see them in commercial hatcheries have literally brand names, Red Comet, Red Star, two different brand names, identical chickens. They are bred on the traditional Rhode Island red and Delaware breeds. You can see that in that rooster. He has the highlight, the dark plumage of a Delaware. Uh, the hen is the more Rhode Island red. They're a hybrid, just like a hybrid plant. They don't breed true, so the next generation will not have the same characteristic, but they are great egg layers. I've had several flocks of these over the years, and they are very productive birds. Delawares are another generalist, bred in the early 20s for home production. Said to be a good amount of eggs and also a heavier bird that can be used as a meat bird. Hardy and well adapted to northern climates. They have a good personality. They're very calm, very sweet, wander around, don't bother anyone. Some chickens have a more hyperactive personality. Buff Orpingtons, or Orpingtons in general, because there are many different colors associated with the Orpington breeds. Lavender, red, black, and spangled. Very popular because it's a good looking bird. It's from England and north of England and Scotland. They are another one that's well adapted to these climates, so they do well here. Rhode Island Red is an important rootstock of many different breeds. It's a breed that developed here or near here in New England. There's a slightly different one called a New Hampshire Red. I don't even know what the difference is, but apparently the different breeds, they look exactly alike. This is a breed that's very hardy and does well in harsh environments with minimal care. Another one that's good for called Wyandottes. Wyandottes are a spectacular bird. This is a golden Wyandotte. They come in silver Wyandotte, blue Wyandotte, beautiful birds, large, another generalist, large brown eggs, hardy and well adapted to here. So if you're interested in meat birds, there's really only one breed that you want to get, and that's a Cornish cross. These are these white birds. These are the birds that are in the supermarket. They grow very quickly, 6 to 8 pounds until 8 weeks. Um, and one of the things to realize is that those generalist birds I just talked about, the Delaware and the Wyandottes, they will take 8 or 9 months to get up to that same size, and you'll be pouring feed into them. I've had some growers who say, I want to do heritage breeds because there's a lot of interest in it, but financially it just wasn't worthwhile because I had to put so much feed to get so little meat out of that bird. So this is the most efficient producer of meat, but you will literally need to understand what your processing plans. What are you going to do to turn this chicken into a chicken that can go in the freezer and be served for dinner months down the road before you get chicks? Because if you're going to be commercially processed, it's hard to find commercial chicken processing operations at this time, and you better be prepared to do it at home. And that's a whole nother thing which we may talk about in a future webinar. I would have to get a guest speaker because it's not really, I have had a little bit of experience, but not enough to talk about it. So, and finally, eggs themselves. Each breed produces its own color pattern from pure white to chocolate brown, and you have blues and greens. Virtually all the ones we just saw are in the brown spectrum. Araucanas do blue and green. There's a breed called the Easter Egger, which also does a blue or green. The chickens they kind of follow the cycle of the seasons like everyone else, every other creature, and they lay heavily in the spring, and then that starts to taper off in the fall. And the winter, they will lay very few eggs. So you'll get a ton of eggs all summer long, and then in the winter, you'll get maybe one or two a week from a bird. So you want to calculate what your needs are in terms of your food supply. You can stimulate layering by providing lighting in the coop, not heat lamps, remember. But that's a stressor on the birds, and it leads to shorter productive lives. So I personally don't recommend it unless you're doing it for a market-based purpose. So the different color eggs, they have the same flavor, they have the same nutritional quality. The big difference is between the home produced eggs and eggs that come from the supermarket. Home produced eggs, thicker and firmer textures in the whites, and the egg yolks are yellower. They provide a very different egg experience. When they're laying eggs, chickens like to lay eggs where they feel safe, and if they're out and they're free ranging a lot, they will start to find places that they feel safe that you're not going to know about. So I had a hen once who loved to run out. As soon as we opened up the gate, she would run out into the woodshed, and she had a secret little corner of the woodshed, and I found must have been 10 or 20 eggs all there in a big clutch. So keep an eye out if they're hiding eggs. Also, if a chicken sits on eggs for long periods of time, refuse to get off the nest, they're broody, and they could get ill by not eating and drinking. So if you see that, you need to start taking them off the nest and locking them out of the coop, or there's some other treatments in terms of like dousing the cold water and other things so that it breaks that cycle. And finally, eggs will often be soiled from chickens laying on them, so gently wipe them or with egg wipes or wash them off. So that concludes it. We're a little bit over time, but I'm still happy to answer any questions. So there is a question: can you supplement their feed with crushed eggshells in addition to oyster shells? You can. A caution with that is you want to mix that in with feed, because you don't want them to get used to the taste of eggshells. Because a problem can be that chickens will start to eat the eggs. They'll develop a taste for it, and then they're going to be destroying your product and they're making a mess. So be careful with that. If you want to use the eggshells, crush them up and add them with their feed. So it just adds the calcium without them identifying it. Any other questions? Remember, if you have questions afterwards, you can reach me at herkimer@cornell.edu or call the office. Happy to answer them. And good luck keeping your birds. Let us know how it goes. I'd love to hear some stories. Thank you.